Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Beyond the Breakwater. You've got Lyndsay and Ed on, and we're going to jump right back into the conversation, picking up where we left off last week. So if you did not listen to last week, just know that this is kind of a part two of talking about an 105 million dream, 105 million. And we want to bring listeners into this kind of arena that we are sitting in currently. We've talked a lot about stories in hindsight, how ministries have formed along the way, the process. But I think what we're finding is listeners like hearing the step-by-steps, the blueprints. And so we're kind of just taking you right into something that we're at. I think some people might look at the ministries we have and say like, great, now you can sustain all of them. But something that you, Ed, are always doing is like pushing all of them. Like nothing ever just sits. It is always like moving to the next thing. How can it grow? How can we start new ministries? And so in this $105 million dream, we talked through a couple of those last week. We talked about $3 million and $250,000. So jump back and listen to those. We're going to keep moving through this dream and getting to the rest of that 105 million. But first, let's just jump into like the model. Like, how is this applied to the Beyond the Breakwater model?
Well, ultimately, we want to reach as many people as we can with Jesus. And I think we've learned, not only are you on Sunday morning sending everybody out in their small boats, as a family into the workplace, into the school. But we've learned that we're doing a little bit larger ministries, and we're doing some very large ministries that are like these big boats that are going out strategically into places where people might be hungry or people needing healthcare, people needing car repair. And it's just a place where we just invite people to come in. And the model is we have life jackets all over the boat, and they come in and they may not know what a life jacket is, but they're there for car repair. And it's also time when we get to just really get to know them better. And so I don't think we can do enough ministries beyond the breakwater because there are so many lost people. And when I say lost, I just mean they don't have a relationship with Christ, and maybe they don't think they need one, but they all have needs. And it doesn't matter your income level. Very wealthy can be very lonely and have a great need for community, and they have a need for altruism. So what is the church doing to address those needs for altruism, and what chips are we getting out there so that they can step on board in a way that's really good for them? But again, the life jackets represent Christ saving us, and we just offer them. So everything that we're doing, so as listeners, maybe get a little bit in the weeds as we're talking people through these ministries. Don't ever lose sight that the goal, the ultimate goal, is to reach one person and change one person's eternity. And it might take 10 years in one ministry with millions of dollars of ministry to reach one. But I think if that one was our child, it'd be worth it. And it's somebody's child.
Yeah. And it's in an exciting place to be with all of the ministries that we currently have, just sizing them up, but then also dreaming up new ministries. So I think maybe at least a way that like my mind is categorizing the dream that you've shared is, I don't know if this would be possible for you to take a look at like the list, and maybe let's go through the dreams of the ministries that we currently have. How are you going to size them up in this dream? And then last, let's jump into like the brand new ones. Like these are new intersection points that we're building bridges into the community in this new way. So what are the existing ones? Start there.
The existing ministries that we're dealing with?
On your list, the dream list, like what is the next chunk of money that would go towards sizing up one of our current ministries?
Okay, so the $250,000 is for the His Hands Auto.
Yep.
We talked about that last time.
Yep.
We talked about $3 million for purchasing 19 more houses. There is a $1 million dream, and that's part of what we called last week our funding strategy. See, right now, Messiah has a mortgage on the building, and we're
The
using
building, like the $1 million
thank
building that
you.
was purchased for
the $1 million building that was purchased for where the bridge is located.
Okay.
And we have two commercial renters that are there as well. So it's 33,000 square feet.
Okay.
The Bridge Food Center has about 8,000. And then two other tenants are renting out commercially. And so they're actually paying the whole mortgage and the expenses. But if we didn't have the mortgage, that would free up another $60,000 a year that we could actually use for impactful ministry. So a gift of $1 million pays off the mortgage, and now $60,000 more money can change lives.
Okay.
So that's part of a funding strategy. Another $4 million would be adjacent to the building that we bought. There's 9 more units. And so a $4 million investment in a building, which again will be here forever, will continue to go up in value, has a cash flow, a net cash flow of anywhere between $175,000 and $330,000 annually of net income. Now, what does that mean? So if you're like, I'm not really sure what that means.
Yeah.
That means between $3,500 and $6,500 a week of extra money for ministry impact.
From the 9 other units? Because
Yes.
they are currently running businesses?
Yes.
Okay. So the income would come from their rent.
Yes. So what it is the church being savvy and or Elevate in this case would own the building, and then we would take the rent from those, pay the expenses, continue to upgrade the building, but it would also allow some cash flow that for an investor that would normally go back to the investor for cash flow for profit. But we take the profits and we would actually use it to change more lives. So it might underwrite brakes, or it might underwrite an appliance for somebody. It might underwrite a roof or a ramp.
Are
for
any
healthcare.
of the 9 units vacant?
2 of them are vacant, which is perfect because we have 2 ministries that are ready to move in.
Perfect.
So, I mean,
So it's kind of like how the bridge currently has the building that we currently have. It
Yes.
has the bridge and its other tenants. So one of our ministries is in there. The other tenants are paying rent to kind of help offset some of the cost of the mortgage.
yeah, not offset, they're paying
Okay.
all of it
Okay. Okay.
and extra.
So it would be doing the exact same thing
Yes.
with 9 other units,
Yes.
2 of our ministries moving in.
Yes. So we
Okay.
learned, I mean, this is really new for us, Lyndsay. It goes back in history because when we had Journey's Coffee House on Main Street and the rent went up 57% with a triple net lease, which means we're responsible for everything that goes wrong in a 100-year-old building. And we got squeezed out and the ministry closed. So what we learned is that when you own, you can't ever get squeezed out. And when you own the building, there's 2 things you get to control. You can control rent and space. So the Bridge Food Center needed space, and we also get to control rent. So like the retail space that the Bridge should be paying is $110,000 annually for rent. That's what the rent should be. But we're charging, Elevate is charging the Bridge $36,000. So we're controlling space and we're controlling rent because we own the building. So now that kind of was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this was possible. And now that we've got the bugs worked down, and it's really been an amazing journey for us,
Yeah.
now we'd like to buy 9 more units.
So it's kind of like we've talked about the principles we're
Yes.
using being applied to other ministries.
Yes.
Okay. So that's 4 million.
Yes.
What's the next thing?
Okay, the next thing would be to buy another piece of property down the street. I don't know the exact price tag of it, but I put $2 million on the price tag to buy a piece of prime real estate on a main road. So I'm not sure what it's going for, but $2 million would more than cover not just the cost of the property, but probably for some development, not the building, just development.
Development as in like to build
Utilities.
some. Oh, okay. All right.
Just get it ready. Parking lot,
Okay.
Everything that we would need, just not the building
For
structure.
what?
Okay, so this would be no, I know this one's controversial.
Oh.
So we had a coffee house on Main Street, which was really incredible in terms of its ministry. We would like to do something like Journeys again, except we want to expand it. So during the day, it would be a coffee house. Before I tell you the rest of it,
Now everybody's like, what? And
everybody's
what else?
What? I know. Just maybe we should take a commercial break.
Yeah,
right?
right.
So it would be before school care, because there's a high school right around the corner. And it would be the place that we could say to parents, drop your child off at Journeys at 7:00. And we're going to have a living room section so that it'll look a couple fireplaces, couches, chairs, so that it'll be just like their home. Then they can go there, then go to school all day. They can go back to the coffee house afterwards for either a high-tech area or living room atmosphere and stay there until mom or dad gets out of work, come pick them up so that they know that their child is safe. So that would be from like 7 in the morning till, say, 5. Then we'd like to have a pub as part of it.
What? Everyone's like, wait, back up.
Yeah.
10 seconds. A what?
Right. I know it's not too often that a church would go into a ministry having a pub. But Elevate, I mean, I know we've talked about Elevate and Messiah. And Elevate is the nonprofit arm. So it's not the church owning it. It would be Elevate would be owning and running this. But we would do a pub. So maybe you can fill in more. Talk about small group ministry, things that have just happened recently.
Yeah.
Because what you're starting is actually going to find its way probably over to this new place.
So one of our baristas, one of our Journeys baristas that we have currently, her and I we met like a month ago, and we're just talking about how we developed such like thriving and flourishing communities in college. And then we moved back to our hometowns and found that there was like nothing here. So we started up a young adults ministry and just like posted a video the other day, just throwing it out there of like, this is our vision. This is what we want to take time and like build community here, because it's not something that we can just intersect and find. And it's one of those things that like kind of when we're talking about this list of how do you begin and where are you at and sharing your dream, like we felt like we're not ready to do something yet. We're not ready. And we're like, all right, we're never going to be ready. We just have to throw something on the calendar and just do it. And so it was like kind of the scariest thing of posting those videos to all of our Facebook groups in Midland, and got wild amounts of reaction to it. Like there have been like 1.7 thousand views on the video, a ton of shares. We created this Facebook group, had over now 80 young adults joining this group. Wow. And at least like 10 people have marked or reached out or had questions of like, we're not believers. Is it okay that we still come because we're just lonely and we need community?
That's incredible.
Yes. And so it's like we're talking about all of these principles that we've learned in the community ministries, applying it in the same way here, saying like, yeah, like you can totally come. Like we will always be upfront about the events and the gatherings that we're having. So you can decide if you'd like to come or not. And our job is not to convert you. Like we want to build community. We want to find friends. And so all of that to say, like I have been a part over the last 3 years of several different circles of leaders and groups trying to start young adult ministries in Midland. And the kind of one of the obstacles that I think we've had is young adults not having a place that is their own. We've talked about finding more neutral ground for people to meet, because there's just something funky that happens when you say, come to Messiah Church. And then it's like all of the other churches. And like, if you are a part of another church, they feel weird going to another church, right. Like they've abandoned their own, right. And it becomes this turf war. And if you are not a believer, it's like, I don't want to step foot in a church for a community, right. To find and build that. I can find that somewhere else. And so I had kind of shared this with our barista, my friend that we're starting this ministry with, and sharing this dream of like, okay, imagine this coffee house pub and the building is ours. And she was like, that needs to happen. Like, how soon can that happen? Is that like a this year thing? Is that like, when is that? Because that would be amazing. And so it's one of those things that we're just like prayerfully like, Lord, would you bring an investor to fund this ministry? Because this group is starting now and it's launching now, and we're starting out of it's called the Grove Street Chapel, but it's no longer a church. A lot of churches have started up out of that chapel, but now it's part of Caregiving Network. And so it's like an office building that's been renovated, and they had said like, all right, the building's yours. Like, we'll get you a key. It's yours. It's very neutral ground. And I think that's been a big draw of this as well, is like, okay, this is not part of anything. This is just simply a building that we're meeting in. And it's different than if we were to say, let's meet at like another coffee house or something.
Right.
It feels like you're just, I don't know, using the space, but you have to get out. But this just feels very different. So that's a long answer to your question of like, hearing this dream is something super exciting to us because it's a need that is present. And I think to see this ministry start up now and maybe migrate into that space, like it would just be huge. It would be awesome.
No, we haven't shared the list today. Walk through the list, because I think you're talking about this right now.
Yeah. So the list we had brainstormed that we keep referring to, it's how do we begin? Like a lot of churches might have this dream or this idea. Like for us, it was like a young adult ministry needs to start here somehow. So the list it's 9 steps. 1 is pray. 2, start with a dream. 3 is tell others about your dream. 4, start small. This is exactly what
it is exactly what you're doing. This is where we want people, we want to bring them along. We're doing what's on our list. This is why we're sharing our list, because it works.
Yeah. So 4, start small. That's us just saying, all right, we're throwing out a video out there, and if you want to be a part of this, come and join. 5, make a plan. So we have a couple events and gatherings that we have on the calendar of what we're doing and where we'll be.
Okay, and pause, because while you're doing that plan, I'm working on this plan. I'm working on another place, so that as this ministry grows, because you don't want to go from 0 to here's a building, $7 million dream,
and we've got nobody to fill it.
And we've got nobody in it.
Yeah.
So we're starting small by using a neutral zone, and then a neutral zone could be their own place. Because imagine them saying, if only we had our own place. Yeah,
right. 6, pray some more. I mean, we've done that. I just messaged Brooke the other day once we posted that video, and I'm like, okay, I was kind of expecting this to be a flop, but it's becoming like there's a large response, and now I'm nervous.
Right.
So we're like, well, let's just pray about it. So pray some more.
Right.
7, bring others along. We're looking for people to lead worship. We met a couple people the other night and want to ask them. Bringing others into the leading process, the praying process. 8, wait on God. And that's, I guess, kind of where we're at too, at least for me in this.
Well, I think both.
Yeah.
As we share the bigger dream, because I didn't say the building, we're allocating $5 million for the new building. $2 million for the property, $5 million for the Journeys and pub, the coffee house pub. But you see, that would be where young adults would then move out of this place and they would have their own place. And now we're waiting, because is God going to raise up somebody that would say, I love that idea, I want to invest in that?
Yeah. The last one is watch for opportunities.
Right.
So watch for that. Maybe investor, maybe someone donating a building. Who knows? I don't know. God does crazy things.
Right. It's exciting because we're in this.
Yeah.
And hopefully people can kind of hear, oh, got it. This is the process that you go through.
All right. What's next on your list?
All right. So here's another one. We would like to raise another $1 million for Pivot Point. This is our appliance ministry and job creation ministry, because if they're going into roofing and ramps, they're going to need trucks, trailers, dump trailers, harnesses, scaffolding, and we would like to go to businesses, which we've done in the past, go to a manufacturer of shingles and say, can we buy them by the truckload? And so maybe we'll have 2, 3, 4 truckloads of shingles all in black and get a really good price on them, because a lot of times this is that altruistic part that you go to a manufacturer and say, could you cut us a deal, because we're not profiting it off of you. we're actually passing those savings on to people who really need a roof. So we need a space for this. And we did this years ago when Midland went through this horrific flood. We went up the chain to one of the manufacturers of appliances, and it was a time when there was 2,000 orders. They were behind because of COVID. And we told them that we wanted to sell appliances to people who lost their appliances in the flood. And they gave us this crazy, crazy price for washers
Crazy
and
low or
dryers.
crazy high?
Crazy low.
Okay.
Crazy low.
Huh.
And then we actually used money that people gave us. And so we were selling brand new washers for $200
Wow.
and brand new dryers for $200. Really middle of the road appliances. But the manufacturer got in on this and sold us 2 semi-loads full of appliances that we could sell with dignity into our community for people who lost it with the flood. So, see, we've been here. We've done this before. And we think doing shingles would be the same thing that people would. We think manufacturers would be like, we can cut you a deal because you're helping people. So they need a place. That's another $1 million.
Okay.
So now the dream gets bigger. Let's talk about the $45 million dream. One's 40 and one's 45. So, because I don't know exactly how much either one of these are going to cost, but this is the 2 variables. But the dreams is a sports center.
Okay, so this is where we're branching into like new territory. These
Brand new
are
territory.
not ministries that exist.
No.
Everything historically has been we're sizing up. These are brand new.
Right.
Okay.
There's an amazing property right across the street from the church, which I think would be a perfect place for this because we could support it. And we would put this at least 100,000 square foot sports center that may include a full-size soccer field inside, may include like 5 basketball courts professionally done, weight room, track. And it would be primarily, here's our target. We want to help every child who would love to be in sports, but is getting priced out of sports and never gets the opportunity to be in sports because it's expensive. I mean, I'm hearing parents talk about the hundreds of dollars that it costs to have their child in sports. And usually by middle school, if you're Alice or below, you're knocked out. You just can't participate anymore. So we want to create this place that we could really run an incredible sport. Now, we also have, the church owns an additional 20 acres that we're not using. And we've talked in the past, it'd be a great place for ball fields, soccer fields, baseball diamonds. It would be outdoors, so we could have outdoors for summer. We could have an indoor sports facility. But from a Christ-centered standpoint, let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
I hear so often people are like complaining that people are more interested in sports than they are in church or in Christ. And Sunday morning became a day that all sporting activities are going on Sunday morning. And instead of the church going, oh, how come you're not going to church instead of doing sports? Why doesn't the church lead the sports ministry on Sunday morning? So my dream for that is to not only have this stellar, phenomenal facility, but we would actually like hire pastors and say, you're also a pastor who's an athletic director, and this is your church, and we want you to run this incredible ministry and care for all of these families who have no connection to Christ, no connection to anything having to do with God at all. And we'd like to set them loose and then have this whole ministry. So, I mean, think about Beyond the Breakwater model. Imagine a sports center way out there that's saying, come one, come all. And all the people that don't have an opportunity to play sports, now you do. And I can already see how we're going to run it because we would use all of our other models as an example that you would have like full paying people. And then you would have a reduced amount for Alice and below so that every person could have the opportunity to have the best sports experience, great mentors, great experiences, all the way up, maybe even all the way up until they get to college where they can then maybe go and play.
How would you, I'm just curious, like, in a slight objection here, is like, we just had a brand new community center in Midland being built and now open.
Yeah.
Is this in direct competition with them, especially when they offer discounts to those who are lower income?
I think there's a difference of lower discounts for memberships. We're talking Alice who is struggling to pay a bill. So I think we're really talking a little bit different audience. If you're Alice, I mean, if you're a female-led household, 71% of them are Alice. Imagine a child saying, "Can I have $300?" and you have 2 or 3 kids. That's $1,000 to play sports when food is hard to put on the table. Healthcare is non-existent. And take a family that's really struggling already, Lyndsay. It doesn't matter how cheap necessarily it is for a membership somewhere else. So no, I see this as we're going to work together because people who can afford that, that's amazing. Go for that. But they don't have the indoor soccer field. I don't know if they have the basketball courts that are going to be opened up to do the tournaments for the community because we want to run tournaments. We want this to be an attractional place so we can have the whole community come. And it'll be Christ-centered, but it'll be quiet Christ-centered because they're coming for sports, but yet it's going to be Christ all over it.
So what's the next on the list?
Well, the next dream is to really help churches across the country. I can't tell you, not just in our country, but across the world, because even in South Africa, they have the same need for the same kind of ministry because the principles are universal. And churches have said along the way, if only we had, let's just say, a building where we could run a food ministry out of. They don't have the facilities. Well, this would be using money to go in to purchase the building, and we would have a contract with them so that they would run it according to the principles that we have set up, and they would run their ministry, and we would own the building. So they would pay rent, but part of that rent would go right back into the building to make it better. So the investment never goes away. Ministry happens. Lives are being changed. It's affordable, so it makes the unaffordable affordable.
Is this where you've talked about like opening like a warming center as an example in Grand Rapids and having other churches lead it there?
Yes.
And kind of stick to values, principles, mission. And then the second that if that is ever violated, it's like, all right, we'll find somebody else to run this.
It.
Okay.
Because remember when we were in Grand Rapids, Chris is the one who helped actually design the whole warming center.
Yeah.
And he said, if only we had a building. And then here'd be another example. I mean, we've got a pastor down in Detroit that really wants to run a housing ministry. But what it is to employ people that are coming out of jail and need good mentors and need good skills like plumbing, electric. And this would be another example that we would go down and we would take that money, so part of that 40 million, 45 million, and we would purchase that home that now that church runs the ministry. And then if they fix it up and sell it, and they're going to make a profit off that. So now they can take that money and buy a second house. Every time they do a third house, they're going to be able to buy a second house. So pretty soon, what our investment did was multiplied down. There was an initial investment. It multiplied, and it just kept running. But the beauty is that that investment never goes away. That we could leave it there as long as it's multiplying and doing its job. But if they ever stopped or it wasn't going well, we would sell it and the money goes back and it could start somewhere else. So on an international scale, this would be, I'm just speaking, maybe listeners heard Andre. He's running Care Village, which is a place where 108 kids are who have been removed from their families, and this is now home. They're looking for a skilled trade center, and they need somebody to come in and invest in a skilled trade building where they will run the skilled trade for the community, and their kids will be trained as well. So you've got the same concept we've talked about. You've got the retail who are paying to learn how to be plumbers, electricians, where the students from Care Village could then go free or for a very small charge, and it would be training all of them so that you're helping kids be ready for life. So the same concept could be used anywhere.
It's incredible. Is that all that's on your list?
Well, there's a little bit more. There's
What else you got?
Well, the other one is really more administration.
Okay.
Because if we're going to run $40 million across the nation or even across the world and helping other places start ministry, we just need a support staff. We need somebody to go look at the building and decide, is this going to be the best investment for, remember, these are donors who invested it with us.
Yeah.
And they expect us to make sure that that investment is true, sound, it's increasing in value, they're taking care of it. So it's really just a administrative that we would take about $5 million, invest it, not just in an endowment, but we would be a little bit more aggressive investing it so that we could take the dollars from there and hire the best people so that we could run these ministries.
I think that makes complete sense. Like somebody told me once, like a body, like a human body, as it gets older and it grows, like your skeleton grows with it. You don't just have a little baby skeleton inside. And so it's like, that's what I imagine with all of these ministries is like, as we are growing, we also need the internal structure to continue to grow with it.
Right. The difference is that we're not looking for, let's just say $300,000 a year. Like, can you give us money for programming? It would be one of those, if you gave us a gift, we would invest it aggressively and that we would use the proceeds from that to run the ministry so that we would never have to ask anybody for another dollar because all these ministries will be self-sustaining.
And that's why it's important to then have a funding strategy for an asset strategy for each ministry.
Right. So the assets would be also funding, but we could also use our assets because remember, people are paying rent for these buildings. That money could also be used as rent to fund the administration. So between them all, I mean, if somebody's got a piece of paper, it might not turn out to be 105, but 105 is what I have in my head that I think God is going to raise.
That's incredible. It reminds me, we shared this in the last episode, but we met with a couple people to just share this dream. And at the end of it, one of the people we met with said, "Thank you for dreaming big." And it reminds me of the podcast we did about have people lost the ability to dream? Have pastors lost the ability to dream? Like, we've had groups come up and say, like, what would you do with $1 million? And you're like, I could tell you what I would do with $105 million. And so it's like they're big, big dreams that were like, okay, Lord, you said you would do more than we ask or imagine. And it's really like, I feel like trusting in God's character that like he, in all of his might and all of his glory and power, could very well do this. Like, this is not outside of the realm of possibilities for something that God could do. And so she had thanked you, like, thank you for dreaming big. Thank you for sharing that dream. And we just spent the last 2 episodes talking about that. And people are going to hear it even as a part of like leadership teams who have not heard this dream here, or people in the church body that have not heard this dream or probably would have not heard it had it not been shared on this podcast. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that and just doing the big scary thing, because it's interesting to hear it now versus it happening in hindsight and saying, this was a dream I had years ago that's now being fulfilled. But now people can join you in prayer too.
Right. Or come be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think this is something that we're going to need a lot of people.
Yes.
And we're going to need a lot of people that have a lot of skills and gifts, or maybe monetary gifts. I'm just excited. I mean, when I think about if somebody had some extra dollars that they have invested, and the only joy they get is to look at it grow, and that's it. But imagine using those same dollars that we're going to invest. They're not going to go away. Those assets will always be there. But imagine how many lives are going to be changed.
Yeah.
How many people are going to get to go to heaven, maybe through playing sports, to meet a mentor who's a pastor, takes them under their wing, leads them into a relationship with Christ, leads the whole family into a relationship with Christ over sports. And their eternity's changed because somebody took money out of a investment and made an investment in people's lives.
So if any part of this has stirred anybody, if you want to start a conversation, I think that's part of this list of like where to begin and bringing others along into it. Like tell others about this dream and let that be an invitation for God to use that as a connection point for them too. So if you are feeling stirred to be like, I just want to start a conversation. I don't want to commit to anything. If you do want to commit to something, we're all ears. We love hearing about where God might be leading you and why God might be putting us in certain conversations with people. So you can always email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. There will be a website link in the description if you want to check out any of the current ministries, kind of look at them and like dream up with us, pray about them, how they might be sized up. If you want to donate, all of those options are available in the description. And we would just love to talk with you. I think that's kind of the most exciting part of doing this podcast is just seeing the incredible people that God bring along that we would have never, ever, ever met. But
Right.
It's a really amazing avenue to meet you guys. So would you add anything to that?
Dream big. That's all I would tell everybody. Don't ever stop dreaming, because I think God is able to do so much more. And this one is really big.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because we watch God do all of it all along the way, that this is not beyond him.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
All right. With that, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.